Hey there, boys and girls. It's Mr. Ron. And I was out in my backyard this morning. The morning sun was shining through the trees. The birds were chirping. The flowers are blooming. And I thought that it would be a great day to read one of our favorite books, The Very Worried Sparrow. But before I do, I'd like to read a verse from the Bible. So many people are worried about so many things these days. And I thought it'd be an encouragement to read some words that Jesus actually said. So listen here. It comes from Matthew chapter 6. Jesus said, "Therefore I tell you, do not be anxious about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, or about your body, what you will put on. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothing? Look at the birds of the air. They neither sow nor reap nor gather into barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not of more value than they?" Well, I want to read this book, and it's going to remind us of those words of Jesus. Thank you, James. It's called The Very Worried Sparrow, and we used to read this to our kids when they were little, and they loved it. And actually, my daughter Brittany suggested that I read it too. I thought that would be a good idea here today. So it's called The Very Worried Sparrow. I think you're going to really like this book. There was once a very worried sparrow. All the other birds looked up at the bright blue sky and sang for joy. But the very worried sparrow hung his head, shut his beak, and looked worried. He had always worried, even when he was just a baby in the nest. His brothers and sisters kept saying, "Cheep, cheep, cheer up." But the very worried sparrow only said, "Meep, meep, oh dear." When he began to grow, the first thing he worried about was food. Oh dear, he thought. "I'm so hungry. Whatever am I going to eat?" His brothers and sisters did not seem to worry at all. They just sat in the nest, looking up at the tree and the bright blue sky. "It's because they don't think," he said to himself. Suddenly, there was a whir of wings, and his mother arrived with 5 fat, juicy caterpillars in her beak. Very soon, all the baby birds were quite fat, and their feathers had begun to grow. One day, Father Bird said, "I think it's time you all learned to fly." "Cheep, cheep, hooray!" said all the little birds, all except the very worried sparrow. He said, "Meep, meep, oh dear," and looked more worried than ever. Can you boys and girls see which one you think is the very worried sparrow? The sparrows hopped out of the nest onto a big branch. They sat in a line, bravely flapping their wings. One by one, they set off. "Whee! This is lovely," they called. The very worried sparrow hopped from one foot to the other. "I'll never do it," he cheeped to himself. "Oh dear!" He was so frightened, he lost his balance and toppled off the branch. He gulped, opened his little wings wide, and flew. "There," said his mother as he landed beside her. "You can do it too." As the spring days turned into warm summer, the little birds grew and grew. They learned to find caterpillars among the green leaves and seeds on the brown earth. Snip, snap went their busy beaks, all except the very worried sparrow. "It's such a big place out there," he thought. "I might get lost away from our nest. Oh dear." At dusk, when they were setting down for the night, Father Sparrow gathered them all together, warm, snug in the nest. He began to tell them wonderful stories of long ago and far away. The great Father who made the world and everything in it, of how the day begins and where the wind comes from, and all the little things that every creature knows. The young birds listened with bright eyes, all except the very worried sparrow. He was too worried to listen. By midsummer, the very worried sparrow felt a bit braver. He set off from home, flying here and there, looking for food and worrying about where to find it. The open fields looked like a good place. Suddenly, a shadow rushed across the ground. The little sparrow felt his heart go bump. Above him hovered the terrible sparrowhawk. He was too frightened even to worry. He crouched down and waited. There was a rush of wings in the air, and the sparrowhawk struck. When the sparrow opened his eyes, he saw the hawk flying up and away. He held a small field mouse in his great claw. "Oh dear," said the sparrow. "Oh dear, oh dear." As soon as he felt better, he flew home as fast as his little wings could carry him. After that, the little sparrow looked more worried than ever. The autumn winds blew and the trees shed their leaves. "Oh dear," thought the very worried sparrow, "it's getting colder and colder. How shall I keep warm? And where am I going to find food to eat and water to drink?" But he did. There was one little pond so sheltered that it didn't freeze. If he looked hard, he could still find seeds and berries in the hedges. And later on, the children came and scattered bread on the snow. You ever fed the birds, maybe in your backyard or at a park? That's what these little boys and girls did. Spring came at last, and the snow melted away into the grass. The sparrows were very excited. It will soon be nesting time, they said, and began to look around for partners. The girl sparrows giggled and whispered on the branches. The boy sparrows flew and swooped and showed off. Soon there were pairs of birds everywhere, searching for a safe place to build their nest. All except the very worried sparrow. "Oh dear," he thought, "now what shall I do? No one will want me for a mate." Sadly, he flew off by himself to the small apple tree at the far end of the garden. But he found that there was someone there already. It was another little sparrow, and she looked very shy. "Cheep," she said in a small voice. "Meep, meep," said the very worried sparrow, suddenly looking more hopeful. "Will you be my mate?" he asked, all in a rush. "Oh, yes," said the shy little sparrow, and she smiled at him. See there? At first, the sparrow and his mate were very happy. But soon the very worried sparrow started to worry again. "Where shall we build our nest?" he thought. "The others have taken the best places." The shy little sparrow flew back to the small apple tree at the far end of the garden. "Look," she chirped, "no one has started to build here, and it's very quiet and safe." The apple blossom fell, and new green leaves hid the nest from sight. Before long, the shy little sparrow was sitting on the nest, looking very proud. Under her warm feathers were 5 beautiful eggs. But the very worried sparrow was looking very, very worried. "Oh dear," he chirped, "I hope my eggs are safe. A cat might come, or a hawk. The tree might fall, and how shall I feed the babies?" "What's the matter?" asked a gentle voice. It was a turtle dove, with soft feathers and a very kindly look in her eyes. "I've never seen a sparrow look so worried before." "Well," said the sparrow, sighing, "there are such a lot of things to worry about," and a big tear rolled down his beak and splashed on his claw. "Well," said the dove gently, "don't you know about the great Father who made us all? Haven't you been listening to the stories of long ago and far away?" "Well, no," sniffed the sparrow. "I was too worried to listen." "Well," said the dove, "when you were a baby bird, didn't you always have food?" "Why, yes," said the sparrow. "And when you learned to fly, you didn't get hurt." "No, I didn't," said the sparrow, thinking back. "What about the sparrowhawk?" the dove cooed gently. "Your time had not yet come, had it?" "Well, I suppose not," said the sparrow. "And your food and water, your mate and your nest, and those beautiful eggs, they all came in good time, didn't they?" Yes, they did," said the sparrow, beginning to look a little happier. "Will you come home with me, please?" he said to the dove. "Come and tell us more. I promise I will listen this time." So the dove flew to the little apple tree at the far end of the garden and perched on the branch next to the nest. As the sun set slowly over the hill and all the birds were settling for sleep, the dove told the sparrows the stories of long ago and far away, of the great Father who made the world and everything in it, of how the day begins and where the wind comes from, and all the little things that every creature knows. She spoke of the seasons and the years, of how things grow and new life comes. She told how the great Father knows each creature and its time on the earth. Next day, when the sun rose, everything was sparkling new in the morning light. The flowers opened their faces to the sun, and all the birds were singing. Look at that, boys and girls. It's a bright, happy day. There was a little noise from the nest. "Tock, tock, tock," went one of the eggs. "Tock, tock, tock." "It's our babies," cried the shy little sparrow excitedly. "Today is the day they will hatch." Then the very worried sparrow smiled. He looked just as happy as his mate. "I can't wait to see them," he said. "We can feed them and watch them grow and teach them to fly. There are so many things to do. And I want to tell them about the great Father who made the world and everything in it and who knows each sparrow. Then they won't have to worry for a single day." And he flapped his wings and sang for joy with all the other birds. "Cheep, cheep," he sang, "cheep, cheep, cheep," loud enough to burst with happiness. Well, isn't that a happy ending to this story? He thought he had so much to worry about, and yet he found out that, you know what? He has nothing to worry about because the great Father is in control of everything. And isn't that what Jesus said? That our Heavenly Father knows everything we need, so we don't have to worry. So I hope that brings you a little bit of happiness and joy today. And maybe you can go back and look through Matthew 6 or have your mom and dad read you from the Bible and then go outside and look at the birds and remember, they're not worried about anything because they know that our Heavenly Father takes care of everything. So I hope you have a happy day and we'll see you next time.